Most advisors talk about, the advice that we give and the planning that we do and the clients that we see and that we engage with and all the amazingness. But what we really, really talk about is the late nights being spent with compliance. And, this is a reality like admin. When we talk about, maybe there's some gaps somewhere in our team and I've got to make up for that because I lost somebody and now suddenly I've got to do that job as well. And or probably one of the most frustrating things is just sorting out my tech, getting my tech to work again and just to work seamlessly. And I don't know where to start, and I don't know what the issue is, or just how something works. All of that is something that we don't talk about enough. So today I'm going to talk about that, and we're going to look at the invisible load that exists when you run your own financial planning firm, and how we can go about, and solve some of those things. So looking forward to a lucky episode.
Welcome to Propulsion, the weekly show for financial planners and advisors who want to build better, more successful businesses. I'm your host, Francois du Toit, and every week we dive into the practical strategies that matter, from growing your client base and improving your services to developing yourself and your team. Whether you're running your own practice or you're part of a larger firm, you are guaranteed to find actionable insights to help your business thrive. So with that, welcome, and let's get into today's episode.
I can tell you from my own personal experience that the invisible workload or these pesky little things that we all need to do, and that's very important for our businesses to be done, was very real in my journey throughout my career. I don't think it's only just since I've been running this business. It's been coming with me for a very long time. I think the role that I found myself in for many years had a big element of an admin in it, and a big part of servicing, as we call it in the profession, as part of that role, right? So it's almost like I personally have been primed in a certain way so that I will just not mind doing that. Way back in the day, I remember, like when I was still growing up, a lot of people had assistants who helped them, and they had secretaries who helped them, etc. And then we sort of moved into a world where you can do all of this stuff. We now have computers. We don't need somebody to sit there typing on a typing machine, which goes slowly. We can now copy and paste. So now you can start doing these things yourself, right? And we've really moved into a world where we took on a lot of the responsibilities and a lot of the activities that was in the past done by somebody else, all in the name of being more efficient and being more profitable and all that kind of stuff. So, these things are not foreign to anybody listening to this at this point in time. And you might be sitting there and saying, I have no idea what you're talking about. My business is sorted out, got a nice team, things are running smoothly. There's not a thing to complain about. The only thing I wish was that companies would treat us better. That's probably the only complaint. That doesn't matter how great your business are, everybody's sort of struggling with that to some degree. So we all know about this stuff, right? There's a problem that creeps up. It's not always only just admin. There's a problem, and it's like only you can sort it out, and everybody comes to you to have this sorted out. And you don't have time during the day. So what do? We sit with it after hours. So we sit with it on weekends, and we sort of try and figure things out. Now, I'm not talking about coming up with something innovative and something that's really exciting and something that's really going to, I almost want to use the word revolutionize your business. Like I've been doing the last couple of days. I've been building automations to help Unita considerably with a few things, and testing a thing that hopefully I must go see if things came through during the night to see whether if I can get that part right, she's got to love me even more. So that's sort of, I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. That stuff is fun. That's nice to sort out, to tackle a problem and sort it out. I'm talking about these daily pesky little things that just keep on happening all over and over and over again. So there is this concept of the invisible workload. When often we sort of think about, can you do this? Can you do that? Like actually, David and I was talking just before the show about, you write articles for certain places, and it's like, I've got lots of things to write about. Yes, I've got lots of time to write about. And in our mind, we think, it takes us X amount of time. We've got time. I can see so many clients. I have time. I can do this. I have so much time. And then you just find yourself that you don't really have that time. And it's because of this concept around an invisible workload that we all deal with. I think whether you have your own business or whether you in your career, in both places, we sort of struggling with the same thing. The problem with the invisible workload is that it's really draining not only time, but it is also draining energy. And the other problem is that we rarely acknowledge that this is the case, right? I think it's also the same thing that when you start out and you're able to do everything, I've got so much time. I don't know what people are complaining about. I can just get to do all of this stuff. Man, this is easy. And then a couple of months in or a year in or something, you realize like, oh, hell, I can't get to everything. It's really, I'm working long hours. But you're sort of now in that sort of, I don't know what it is, what's like the Grand Canyon, like you're there somewhere and you just can't get to really bring somebody in because, on that line between can I afford it, can I not afford it? And then who do I bring in? So there's a few of these things I'm going to talk about this morning, which I'm really excited about to share with you. Because obviously in the recent while, I've learned quite a few things that I thought I knew that I didn't know, and a few things that I thought I understood that I didn't understand. So I'm excited to share that with you. But this thing about the invisible workload, it's very relevant to financial advisors, financial planners, and business owners, because we carry this load in silence. Right? Silence is, well, no, that's patience, but silence is golden, right? What do they say? So we don't tell others about it, and that sort of just contributes to the stress, to burnout, and just being even more inefficient than what we want to be. So with that setting the scene, I want to talk a little bit about what the invisible workload really looks like for most of us, or for some of us, and some of these things might apply, some of these things might not apply. But what are the kind of things that sort of fits into this invisible workload category, if you will? So the first one is operations and admin. There's no surprise there. I think, completing paperwork, chasing paperwork, onboarding clients, updating client information, I don't know, like your e-filing that you need to do with SARS, all the reports and the feedback and things that needs to be submitted to all of the different regulators that we fall under, compliance, all those kinds of things are really fitting into that operations and admin part. And I think we all sort of know about them, and there's no surprise there, really. There's nothing I can put under that category that would go like, oh, wow, that's an insight. But I mean, that's there, right? And there's a lot of it. And it feels like there's more and more and more of these things that we need to do. And that is absolutely true. But then also, some of this has to do with HR and team dynamics as well. We think about when you need to hire someone. And this is one of the biggest revelations I've probably had. And not because of, I think through pure luck, I'll be honest to say, because I think when you're trying to appoint your first person, for example, or you need to replace somebody, or you need to bring somebody in, we typically go for, okay, because I am where I am for whatever reason, I'm going to look for somebody that I can pay a reasonable income, but it's not a massive income, right? So in other words, it's somebody who's newer with less experience, somebody that I can train up, somebody that I can put through my paces, and get them to work the way that we work, and then we will grow them. And as they grow and as the business grows, we'll pay them more, etc., etc. That often, I don't know, like in my past experiences, that never worked for me. I didn't realize it. I just thought I wasn't employing the right people. Well, I wasn't. But the fact is not that. It's not that it was the wrong people. It was, I was looking at it from a what is this going to cost me point of view, instead of a what am I gaining point of view. And I think bringing somebody into your business, especially your very first hire, to be very good at what they do and very experienced at what they do. A lot of people say, no, you never want to do that because they come with their own baggage and they come with their own issues and their own stories and their way of working. You can't change it. But I can tell you now, when you're in a position where you were doing everything and suddenly you've got somebody that can help you carry that load from day one, and there's a few things that you need to figure out, that becomes easy. And there is a way of hiring that you could really make that a very good fit, right? And then it's worth paying that, because immediately you can go and generate more revenue doing the things that you haven't been getting to. So that's really, really something to think about. And if you can find somebody like that, that's absolutely fantastic. Also, as far as hiring is concerned, you've got to think about the process that you put people through. So the last time that I hired, I never had the knowledge or the skills before when I did this. I never looked at these kinds of things. But there were two things that we looked at, particularly with our last process of hiring someone. The first one was strengths. So we looked at Gallup strengths. Second thing is we looked at the business energy profiles, and we wanted to understand where this person gets their energy in business. We want to understand what they are naturally good at. What are the things? So we hired more for personality and making sure that they are the exact opposite of what I am, because getting another person like me is going to be absolutely, it's not going to help. So we wanted somebody who's the complete opposite of what I am. And that was more important just necessarily than the skills, but the skills is then the second part that you look at. Okay. So this is not an episode about hiring people, but I just wanted to sort of fill that in because that's really, really important. So if you hire the wrong person, this HR and team dynamics issue, that then becomes a big part of the invisible workload, right? Because you manage them, you've got to train them, you've got to spend all that time on that to get that done. Also, now suddenly you have leave policies that needs to be not only put together but also enforced, right? So now, what are the systems and the processes for people to, well, I want to take leave. Now what? How do we do it? What's the thing? You never had to do that, right? Because we never go on leave anyway. But then you've got to think about culture. You've got to think about the difficult conversations that you might want to have. Now suddenly there's performance and there's staff engagement. So the funny thing is that you can't grow without people, but if you have people, these are things that are part of your invisible workload that maybe we're not realizing or not recognizing at this point in time. The third thing is then technology issues. As we become more and more technology driven, and as we use more and more technology, there's more and more things that can stop working, right? I mean, you're driving on the highway and suddenly you get a flat tire or your engine breaks or whatever the case may be. And there you are right next to the road. Now this thing needs to be fixed or you need to be picked up. It's the same thing with our technology. When something stops working, it's a problem. For us particularly, for example, when our website is down, it's an absolute problem because there's always something going on and people need to be able to access our website. So things like that is very, very important for you. When your Calendly link isn't working, when you can't access your online document management system, for example, you can't access the CRM for whatever reason, then suddenly it becomes a massive issue and it's got to be sorted out. You don't have internet in the office, like it's a massive issue, right? I always wanted to say, like, if you can't print, it's a massive issue, but hopefully we're not printing that much anymore. So that's that. But then also think about technology from I think which we often neglect is to say, well, my systems don't talk to each other, so I've got to repeat certain actions over and over again. So that becomes part of the invisible workload. When we think about, my licenses are expiring and we've got to renew them. Now, luckily these days, those are pretty much automated. But I think the other thing when it comes to license management is that, you have somebody leaving and you forget to cancel something. Because some software, you buy licenses on a per user basis and others gives you a package. So you can have up to 5 users or up to 10 users or something. So maybe you've got to downgrade a package if you've got to remove users or whatever those things might be, but there's a management issue that goes into that. And then also when you implement a new system, we often don't find the time to learn it. We don't spend the time to figure them out. We don't see how we can best employ them. And then we say, well, it's a crappy system. It's a complicated system. It's not a user-friendly system. But those are usually part of that as well. And then, of course, the troubleshooting that I spoke about earlier. Then the fourth thing is compliance and risk. We also know that this is a massive part of the invisible workload, but it's not necessarily the doing of the compliance only. It's also the staying up to date with compliance, right? So those things are important. It's funny, like I rarely speak about compliance or I speak about regulatory updates. I would get people in to come and talk about those because I don't get excited about any of that stuff. But those are some of the most popular sessions because people really they want to be up to date. I want to make sure, what do I need to do? I don't want to get in trouble. And that's sort of the thing for me. That's the sad part about compliance is that we do see it as a stick. We do see it as if I don't comply, then I have a problem. I think something that could possibly help here is to think about compliance as a benefit. Like, how can I better my business? Because compliance is really meant not only really, it says it's to protect the consumer and all of that, and it is, but it also gives us a blueprint to build a good business. The challenge comes in figuring out what that looks like for a small business versus a big business. It's a very different look, I think. And unfortunately, in most cases, it's the same regulation that apply to both. So that's the one thing that I wish would change. And I know there are some parts of the regulation which does take into account whether you're a small firm or a big firm. So that's also happening. But that's very important, right? Then the last thing that I think is that's probably the biggest part of the invisible world. If you think about all these things I just spoke about, you should already be sort of tired, and then go like, okay, so the mental load of this, and that's the fifth one. The mental load is that, it's just this thing about I've always got to be on. I've also always got to be thinking about my business. And for me, that's a habit, right? So I don't mind. I love thinking about my business, and I love thinking about what next. What do we need to do there? What do we need to do next? But there's an energy drain there that's happening. Your brain needs energy to function. It needs energy to think. And I can't switch it off anymore, right? So I'm always thinking. If it's not about the business, it's about the business. That's basically what's happening. And it's really not because I'm almost obsessed with my business. It's not about that. It's definitely that that's my life, right? So that's what I spend a lot of time thinking about. It does give me energy in some sense, I think, but there's a massive thing there if you can't switch off, which I do experience as well. All of the decisions that we need to make. And I think for many of us, we put too much into making decisions because I can't afford to make the wrong decision. We're really missing the point with decisions. Like like regularly, often is the word I'm looking for. I often say to people, even my wife, I would say, look, this isn't a life-changing decision. Like just pick something, just choose something. It's not gonna break the bank. It's not going to do whatever. Just make a decision. Doesn't matter whether it's this thing or that thing. It's pretty much the same thing. But we want to analyze things into the nth degree. And that's fine when you have to do it. But when we do it with every decision, it's a problem because now we're stressed about, am I making the right decision or not? So we really got to think about the way that we go about making decisions and which are the decisions that are really worth our time to spend so much energy and so much time on. So sometimes just make the decision and move on, right? And then if it turns out to be the wrong decision, just kill it quickly and move on and make another decision. That's fine. So what paper we buy for the office, what paper is again a bad idea, versus what CRM do we choose? It's a very different process that you're going to go through because the one is easy. Oh, we'll never buy that paper again. And then for the next one, it's just like, okay, we've got to think about whether this CRM is a good fit for us or not, because changing that is really painful and costly. So not all decisions are the same. So we shouldn't treat them the same, but decisions are really making part of that. Being the leader of that business or that practice also takes a lot, because if people see that you are stressed and they see that you're not coping and that you are overwhelmed by this invisible workload, they sense that, and that has an impact on what they do as well. So the fact that we take responsibility for everything and everyone is also something that plays into that, right? So the big question is, why don't we talk about this? And I think it does depend very much on sometimes the space in which we find ourselves and whether we feel it's a safe space and whether we trust the person that we're sitting across from. Because we don't want to come across as people who just complain. Like, we're positive people, right? We're looking for the opportunities, we want to do things, and this is just part of business. But I think there are some things that I want to mention around why I think we don't talk about this. And one of the things is sort of this myth of control. And, we just believe as business owners that, and let me just also clarify at this point, I want to interrupt myself. I said to somebody a week or so ago, I said, like, because they referred to me as having my own business. I said, we often think about that. We have our own business, but do we really? Am I just self-employed? Am I just working for myself? And even worse, the things we're talking about, working by myself. Because if I have a business, I have a team of people and I drive where the business is going and they make it happen, right? That's a business. Other than that, we're just self-employed and we are everything. So also when I say business, just take that into context as well. But anyway, so when we think about this is that if I own a business, I should be able to handle this. I wouldn't have been here unless I was capable of handling this. And also it's my responsibility. If I'm going to say, well, this is too much for me, then it means that I'm failing. It means that I'm a failure. And that's a big part of that. So it's this myth of control. I've got to be able to do this. The second thing is obviously, I mean, a lot of us feel probably that, working hard and being seen as the person that can work for 16, 17 hours a day or 12 hours a day, whatever it is, that, it's a sign of success. Like, and I've got this badge of honor, because I can really work hard. And we know about the whole myth between business and busyness. So I'm not going to get into that. But when I'm overworking, it becomes that sign that I'm probably successful. And I think often not to others, but sort of to ourselves. Oh, wow, look at how busy we are. We're so blessed and all of that. Then isolation is obviously a big one as well, especially in small practices. There's no one to share this with. And very interesting enough, I had so many conversations, right, where people join big FSPs or they work within a tight environment and they are so alone and they are so isolated. So you're part of a big business, but you're still there in your office, wherever you are, at home or wherever, and you still feel exactly like you did when you were completely on your own anyway. So it doesn't mean that if you are surrounded by a lot of people that you don't feel isolated and that you don't feel alone. It's very, very easy for that to happen. And also I think we often believe that it's people don't understand. No one understands. Only me who understands because I'm living this every single second. So isolation is a big one as well. And then just simply lack of awareness. Some advisors are so used to juggling everything. I'm used to juggling everything. I don't even, you don't realize how heavy the load is, right? So we just don't know. It's business. It's how it is. So that's really important. So what is all of this costing you? I'm going to break this down a bit. So what is all of this costing you? First thing, the obvious thing is time, right? So if we think about that, we're spending way too much time on the things that don't grow the practice or serve the client. But without it, you don't have a business and you don't have a client. So it doesn't grow it, but it means that it's there. So these are things that needs to get done, but it's costing us a lot of time and it takes us away from growing the business. Because why are you in business in the first place? Why are you in a role that pays you income that is not guaranteed, right? Because you want to grow. That's the whole aim of business. It often starts off as maybe I need to earn a living. When we sort of sort out the base of Maslow, then that's what the stuff that we need. And then you realize, but there's more that we can do, and we can have other people more and more and more. And so we want to grow, but it's costing us the time to actually do so. A big one, which is more important than time, is energy. So burnout, loss of joy. I speak to a lot of people who say, this isn't fun anymore. I'm not enjoying myself anymore. I'm just hot full of making decisions. So you've got a bit of decision fatigue. And these are the common things, so you really feel tired all the time. So that's really important. Then team culture also, because if I'm stressed and I'm not getting to things, I'm stressing out the team as well, specifically in a smaller environment, right? So when it's a big environment, like you sort of somewhere else and the people who work closely with you might be able to see, but the rest of the business might not know the leader is stressed or whatever that may be. But in a small business, it's absolutely something that is important. Also, then it does impact your client experience. So when we think operations all the time, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, then I'm not present in the moment when I'm dealing with my clients. I'm not really listening. It's harder to really deliver advice with impact because I'm thinking about whatever all the other things is that needs to be done, or just simply because I'm so tired, I'm just not present. So these are that. And then business value, obviously, is the other one. It's costing you business value. And if you think about that, you have a business or a practice that is dependent on you, and you can't scale. That means that you don't have an exit value, really. And that's something that we'll talk about more in an upcoming episode as well, but very, very important. So it sounds like these are all like, what a negative episode today, Francois. No, it's not, right? So these are all the things that we need that awareness. We need to be one, know that, yes, Francois, I can resonate with this. Maybe not, but maybe I think most of you will. And then secondly is that let's acknowledge it and say, yeah, it's the truth, and what can we do about it? So if you want to start lightening the load, there are some lights at the end of the tunnel. Step one, acknowledge it, right? So make a list. So here's some practical advice. Hopefully you've got a notebook. Make a list of your non-advice work over a week, right? So whatever you do, just make a quick note on a normal piece of paper with a pen. And then think about, just have a look and see what's really draining your time. And more importantly, the one thing that I learned is that you got to figure out what gives you energy in business and what drains your energy. That is going to be the most revolutionary thing that you can ever figure out in your practice. Secondly, delegate or outsource, right? So think about admin or client service or IT, even marketing. Like, let somebody else handle that, or stop some of the things that you can stop. Not everything needs to be done. Maybe some things needs to be put in place first before you do that. You can think about people like we had Louis on here from Brish. There's some other options and things that's available. A big thing using AI tools, because it speeds up workflow and work to be done significantly, right? And there's all sorts of simple things that we can use it for, that it saves us a minute here, 2 minutes there, sometimes much longer, but it makes a massive difference. The third thing that's really starting to help us a lot, and we're really doing this well now, I think we're starting to get there. I don't know, Ben can tell you whether we're starting to get there or not, but to document and streamline. So this is the first thing, right? So our big job at the moment is to get everything that's in Francois' head into a document, into a process, into a place where everybody's got access to it, so that other people can start doing what I used to do. So that's really important. And the things that I then thought like only I can do, suddenly other people can do it. So it's really easy. The way that we do it, I wrote a whole article that will be published in Blue Chip soon about that process of how do we document this. And it's very simple. So have a look out for that. That's coming, I think, next month, if I'm not mistaken, or this month in May. Might be, I think it's May, June. I don't know, whenever their next publication comes out. So have a look at that. But that's very important. And then build a practice support system. This is always what I tell people. Like, we often say, but I can't appoint somebody. I can't afford to bring another person onto the team. We're just not there yet. But we're working with so many people. And who are you surrounding yourself with? And what can they help you with? So think about your BC. Think about your BC's manager. Think about the providers you work with. Think about the tech providers. Often, like, we don't make enough use of them, right? They have a vested interest in making this work for you. You've got to work closely with them. Think about, how do you make yourself part of a community? Something like Propulsion, for example, where you can have conversations with other people, where we host a lot of things every single month that will help you with this, and where you can come and say, yes, I'm really overwhelmed by this, or, guys, I figured this out. This is how we did it. And you can help a lot of other people. So you need something like that, because then you also don't feel like you have to carry this load alone. And then just regular check-ins, that's really, really important as well. Then the final one, which is really, really important for me if you want to lighten the load, is be intentional about your energy, not just your time. So I'm going to say that again. Be intentional with your energy and not just your time. My biggest revelation was when I learned last year what is giving me energy in business and what is draining my energy. And that has set the tone for a change in what I'm doing. It said it, the whole thing about, okay, now I understand. And it came to a point where we looked at everybody at that point in the business and we said, well, oh, crap. Lene and I are basically the same. Jonita is almost the same as us, but we all play on this. We all get our energy from the same side of that coin. And it means that these things that the business needs drains the living daylights out of us. So we needed somebody who gets the energy from all this stuff and is drained by the things that we love doing. So that is a whole revelation to understand how that works. So we really got to think about, it's not only about going out and blocking time so that you can recover and take time off and those kinds of things. It's also about understanding what are the things I should do most of the time in my business. You'll always do some of the other things, but you want to spend the majority of your time doing the things that are giving you energy and not draining your energy. Just as I always say, you want to work with clients who gives you energy, who not who drains your energy. It doesn't matter how much money you earn from them. It's not worth it. So be intentional about energy and not just your time. So I want to say this. Do understand that you're not lazy, you're not unproductive, you're not disorganized, right? You're just doing too much invisible work. So very important to understand that. You don't have to carry it alone. Very importantly, there are tools, there are support systems, and people. Most importantly, often we're in a position where, like, it feels like, can people not see that I'm struggling? Can people not just reach out and is nobody seeing that I can't cope, for example? But the biggest thing I've always told people is that, you know what, when you reach out and you say, shit, I need help, the chances of that person not responding and that person not trying to help you or putting you in touch with somebody that can help you is virtually zero, because we all want to help, but we're all also busy fighting our own fight. So don't be shy to reach out. Don't be too proud of saying, like, shit, I don't know how, like, I just can't keep up, and talk to somebody to help you. I'm not talking about professionals, like go to a psychiatrist. I'm just saying, reaching out and saying, like, oh, I don't know how to do this anymore. Let me speak to Propulsion. Let me speak to whoever, right? So very, very important. If there are any of these invisible tasks that you feel you're doing, you're welcome to share that in the chat. If you're in Propulsion in the community, you're welcome to share it with us there as well. And I do want to sort of put a challenge to you to say, go and reflect on what's the one thing that you maybe can stop doing, or that you can delegate or automate this month. Because also the biggest lesson I've learned is that things doesn't have to take that long. Righty, so ladies and gents, my guest next week, for the next 6 weeks, we have guests, right? Getting lekker. Can you see? Not HD, hoendervleis. Okay. So we've got 6 guests coming up over the next 6 weeks. And next week, my guest is Pieter de Villiers. He has a YouTube channel called Money Marks. And he's got, like, I don't know, the last time I looked, he had like thousands of subscribers, and he's really built something really incredible there. So I'll talk a little bit to him about that. He recently joined another firm with Brian Nicol. You all know Brian. And so I want to chat a little bit to Pieter to learn more about his journey and sort of what is, is it worth his time and effort building this YouTube channel, and a whole host of other things that I'm going to be talking to him about. So something that's a little bit different and practical. So looking forward to that. But ladies and gents, on that note, go and have an absolutely amazing, amazing weekend. And I'm traveling a lot next week and the week thereafter. So yeah, I've got to rest and get ready for that. But on that note, please stay safe, be blessed and prosper, and stay curious. Stay curious and continue to face the ball. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on Propulsion. If you found value in today's episode, then there's plenty more where this came from. You can find all our previous episodes right here on the podcast, as well as on our YouTube channel. And talking about the YouTube channel, we go live every single Friday at 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. and we host many different guests, and we also talk about very interesting topics. And on the live show, there's also some incredible segments hosted by some of the most well-known and influential financial planning professionals. So you are most welcome to join us every single Friday. Put it in your diary and we will see you there. And on that note, also please do check out propulsion.co.za/community for all of the goodness, and learn more about how you can become part of our amazing community and how that would benefit you, your business, and your career. So on that note, stay curious and keep raising the bar.